And here is another extremely important topic. The strikes on Crimea have entered their most powerful phase since the beginning of the full-scale war. For example, SBU drones attacked the Belbek air base in Crimea, shooting down 2 Su-27 fighter jets and damaging the control tower. At the same time, the water routes to Crimea are mostly blocked for the occupiers since the armed forces of Ukraine dominate the Black Sea. Let's take a closer look at the details.
On December 20th, long-range SBU drones struck the Belbek airfield in temporarily occupied Crimea. As a result of the attack, 2 Su-27 fighter jets were seriously damaged.
One of the military aircraft was on the taxiway, armed with weaponry and ready for a combat mission. It was destroyed. The estimated value of both aircraft is about $70 million. Additionally, the destruction of the control tower has been confirmed, which could complicate the organization and control of flights at the airfield. SBU Press Service.
This is already the second successful SBU attack on the Belbek airfield in the past week. On the 18th of December, Ukrainian drones destroyed Russian military equipment worth hundreds of millions of dollars. 2 Naval SVU radar systems, a 92 N6 radar from the S-400 Triumph air defense system, a Panzer S-2 air defense system, and a MiG-31 aircraft with a full combat load. Such systematic strikes on the peninsula carry profound strategic significance.
Belbek and Crimea in general are important because, well, to put it simply, they are close to the main part of Ukraine. Accordingly, the shorter the distance to the front line and to Ukrainian positions, the less you have to fly and the harder it is to detect you in time. Understanding this, naturally, Ukrainian forces are trying to destroy all such military facilities, particularly airfields and the aircraft stationed there, so that they cannot be used. The reduced count of radars there are, the less effectively Russian air defense can detect and monitor Ukrainian drones, which may be flying toward Crimea or, for example, toward Novorossiysk, where the Russian Black Sea Fleet naval base is currently situated. Accordingly, the Russian army is essentially blinded by this, without those very radars.
The fact that a radar station was destroyed during the December 18th attack is evidenced by the successful attack on the 20th, when air defense forces were basically firing at the drones at random. Furthermore, in 2021, Belbek was the most important Russian airbase in Crimea. Approximately 46 Su-27 and Su-30 fighter aircraft from the 38th Fighter Aviation Regiment were stationed at this base. There was also a contingent of about a dozen Su-34 fighter bombers, as well as several support aircraft and helicopters, numerous radars and air defense systems. Now, almost all military aircraft have been removed from the peninsula, and those that remain are systematically being destroyed by the Ukrainian armed forces.
Now we can talk in more detail about this specific Warsaw-class submarine. This is certainly not the first significant loss of a Russian submarine during this ongoing war. First, they became the very first country since the end of World War II to lose a submarine in active combat operations at all. And now with this latest event, they have already lost 2 of them. For obvious and strategic reasons, the Russians have not left anything valuable from the fleet behind in Crimea. The primary reason the remnants of the Black Sea Fleet still exist today is their mobility and stealth. In terms of mobility, this means the continuous changing of their anchorage points. The ships are constantly being moved around the harbor or taken out of the base if they realize we are about to strike. Dmytro Pletenchuk, spokesperson for the Ukrainian Navy.
Due to the lack of sufficient air defense and radar systems on the occupied peninsula, which the Ukrainian armed forces are systematically knocking out, the neighboring Krasnodar region, specifically Novozovsk, is also suffering. That's where the remnants of the Black Sea Fleet are stationed. Recently, Ukrainian forces managed to seriously damage a submarine. Russia has become the first country in the world since World War II to lose a second submarine as a result of combat operations.
This is an exceptionally strategic location for neutralizing Russian air defense assets. This includes not only radar stations but also anti-aircraft missile systems. Even the specialized radar for the unique S-500 was destroyed there. The work is being carried out methodically, and the enemy cannot help but defend the military facilities it has on the occupied peninsula and is forced to reinforce and replenish its air defense assets. This assessment comes from Ole Kotkov, military expert and editor-in-chief of Defense Express.
Besides strikes with Ukrainian weapons, Ukrainian forces regularly strike military targets on the peninsula with Western weapons. No special permission is needed since Crimea is recognized Ukrainian territory. At present, Crimea is under the fire control of the defense forces. The Russian occupiers are compelled to withdraw both their naval ships and military aircraft from the peninsula, as their equipment is being systematically targeted for destruction.
Up to 200 strike drones per day. That is the output of the Ukrainian arms company Firepoint. This covers 60% of the strikes on enemy targets. The defenders demonstrate the effectiveness of drone use almost daily. For example, the day before, the Stavropol chemical plant was hit. More on the new Ukrainian weapon, the results and the prospects for its use in the war, coming up next.
11 units, that is the average number of Ukrainian UAVs that either crash or hit their targets on Russian territory each day. The year 2025 set a record for the number of attacks on Russia.
Did you see the drone? No? The entire power plant is on fire. It just blew up. The power plant was blown the hell up.
The number of UAV attacks where the drone either crashed or reached its target in Russia increased by 33% in the incomplete year of 2025. There were about 4,000 of them. This year, drone strikes were recorded in at least 49 regions of Russia, as well as in annexed Crimea and Sevastopol. Drones even reached Siberia. However, in most cases, we are talking about border regions. 57% of all drone attacks in 2025 targeted the Belgorod region.
Ukraine is increasingly striking Russia with drones. For almost all drone and missile strikes on Russia carried out by the Ukrainian armed forces today, domestically produced Ukrainian weaponry is used. Presented here is footage showing a very recent and significant Ukrainian drone strike on the Stavrolan petrochemical plant located in Budyonovsk, Stavropol Krai.
Look. It was even more brilliant.
This is the intense type of blaze we're seeing tonight. By 3 in the morning, the plant had already been struck at least 5 or 6 separate times.
Stavrolan is a major industrial enterprise in the chemical and petrochemical sector. Ukrainian drones carry out such strikes on a consistent and systematic basis. Since August 2025, Ukraine has been actively shelling Russia's oil refining infrastructure, which has led to a significant fuel shortage. The production volumes of Ukrainian drones are growing at an incredible pace. Before the start of the full-scale invasion, the Ukrainian company Firepoint did not exist. Now, at a secret production facility, up to 200 strike drones are produced daily, which has allowed the defense forces to successfully carry out 60% of all drone strikes against the invading occupying forces. The cost of the drones plays a key role in their production. This advanced system costs approximately $50,000, which is nearly 1/3 of the total price of the Russian kamikaze drone Shahed. The Ukrainian company is entirely self-sufficient and has made a conscious decision to avoid using any components from China or the United States.
We steadfastly uphold the principle that no one can influence the weapons we create.
Ukrainian Commander-in-Chief Oleksandr Syrsky also highlighted the importance of strikes on Russia with domestic weapons. Ukrainian drones have caused damage amounting to several tens of billions of dollars.
In addition to actions on the front line, Ukraine is systematically increasing pressure on the enemy deep within its territory. We are successfully striking Russia's critical infrastructure with deep strike capabilities. As a result of these strikes, Russia's direct and indirect losses since the beginning of the year total $21.5 billion. Oleksandr Syrsky, Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of Ukraine.
In addition to strikes by domestically produced drones, Ukraine has recently begun launching missile strikes on military infrastructure targets within Russian territory. Furthermore, these advanced missiles are also domestically produced. The Flamingo is already being used in ongoing combat operations, although the manufacturer Firepoint does not officially confirm specific targets.
At the beginning of the war, Ukraine mainly relied on its old Soviet-era arsenal. Military support from Western nations helped modernize and upgrade the country's armed forces. But now it has emerged as a global leader in the development of advanced unmanned systems such as robots and drones. Now, domestically produced cruise missiles are further expanding Ukraine's arsenal of long-range missiles.
The United States' military support is unpredictable and unstable, and it is unrealistic to expect solid security guarantees for Ukraine from its overseas partners. That is why Ukraine's domestic production of its own weapons and strategic strikes on Russian territory are becoming the primary and most effective method to provide real security guarantees.